We pause this programming during our regularly scheduled airtime to bring you a Lumpen Radio special. The following broadcast may feature a range of conversations, interviews, performances, and more. Please remain seated and enjoy the show.
This is WLPNLP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio. It's the Lumpen Radio special. I know, I was here yesterday. It's Mario Smith. Thank you so much for joining us today as we interrupt our regularly scheduled programming to give you something really dope this afternoon. Damon Locks is joining us to talk about, among other things, his brand new album, List of Demands. But this is an opportunity for me, selfishly, to get to talk to a friend of mine who I haven't talked to in a long time and to get you guys up to speed on all things Damon Locks. It goes without saying, in the last 5 years, Damon's his absolute mastery of this work has been evident with Black Monument Ensemble and the work that they do and all of the things that he's been doing in the community and the teaching and all that stuff. This new album, List of Demands, is a masterwork, y'all. If you haven't had a chance, you have to check it out. And next week here at CoPro, it will be a listening party for Damon's new album, and we will talk about that and all that stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, Damon Locks, welcome to the Lumpen Radio special.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Mario.
Of course, man. It's good to see you. It's good to hear your voice, and you have been knocking it out the park for a minute now. Real quick, how are you feeling? How you doing?
I feel pretty good. I mean, I feel terrible about the world.
Yeah, say that.
But I feel positive that I'm getting to make a lot of visual artwork and a lot of music, and my curiosity is being supported, and that I have a beautiful community of people around me. So I feel thankful for that.
You know, it's been a journey for all of us, and particularly folks here in Chicago who are trying to produce and create art. I know you, but I don't know the beginning part of your journey, your origin story. I am curious. What is the origin story of a Damon Locks?
Well, I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. I was always a kid that drew all the time. And so my mom, being an English teacher, early on put me into art classes. Mm-hmm. I was taking this art class in sixth grade in the summer, between sixth and seventh grade. And the art teacher there, it was in a high school. And the art teacher there was like, I have this high school program, and you might be good for it. And so around eighth grade, my family arranged for me to take classes in a high school program. So I was still in junior high school. So I started taking these art classes in the high school program. And so every day I was being halfway through the day, I would leave and go to this high school program. And that's where I met like a bunch of like older kids that were into punk music. And one of my friends I met there, his name was Joe Lally, and he would later join a band called Fugazi that became super famous. But Peter and Joe and Hal and older kids would pick us up and take us to shows, me and my friends. And so I started seeing punk shows in DC when I was a little kid. So I got to see Bad Brains and Minor Threat and all these kind of seminal hardcore bands. And then when I went away to college, I went to New York to the School of Visual Arts. I met a guy named Fred Armisen, who later became a famous comedian. And we became friends. And I joined his band that he had in Long Island. And we started playing together. And then I decided to move to the Art Institute. And he and the bass player that we were playing with, Wayne Montana, moved along to Chicago with me, where we formed the band Trenchmouth.
Yes, sir.
I went to SAIC. We played a bunch of the SAIC parties, and after I stopped going to school there, we became like a band that toured nationally and internationally. I think we put out about 4 albums. After that, we broke up. Fred became a famous comedian. Me and Wayne went on to perform in the band The Eternals, and the Eternals are still kind of active. We have a record that's going to come out soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We we had a bunch of material before the pandemic hit, and we went into the studio right before the pandemic, and then that all halted. And once things opened up, we finished the album, and someone is going to put it out soon. But around 2014, I started working with the Prison and Neighborhood Arts and Education Project, and I started teaching art at Stateville Correctional Center. And when I was going into Stateville, seeing what our justice system looks like up close, I was coming out to the murder of Mike Brown or Freddie Gray or any number of people, and so Stateville looked to me like 90% Black men incarcerated in the maximum security prison and 90% Black people working there. That's what it looked like to me. So I was looking at that and then coming out to some, really highly visible murders of Black people. And I started thinking about making a project that could address some of my questions around the progress America was actually making in race relations. And so it started off as a sound piece, sound experimentation. And then one track of that led to Black Monument Ensemble. And another track led to kind of the solo experimentations that eventually became something like List of Demands.
Yeah. To go back to the Eternals for a second, that's where I catch up with you in Wicker Park in the late 90s. Middle to late 90s.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was a jungle for a musician in that neighborhood because you had like everybody was around. Yeah. It was you guys. It was dope. It was Veruca Salt. It was Local H. It was the Pumpkins to a degree. There was a lot going on. Very much it was Wesley, a lot, concentrated in a neighborhood at the time, and we were at Lit X doing poetry, and it was like we were trying to find a place in all that was happening. You also had a supernova of a hip hop scene happening in Wicker Park back then with He Who Walks Three Ways, all the stuff Jesse DeLaw was doing. It was
all natural.
All nat, it was concentrated and it was real, and everybody was focusing on that neighborhood because that's where the place where you could go and quite possibly hit. How did the Eternals manage to stand out in that crowd? I mean, also Tortoise, Isotope 217. There's a lot going on. Yep. How did you guys manage to stand out in that jungle of amazing art and music?
I'm not sure that was our goal. There was this kind of interesting, by the end of Trenchmouth, after like alternative became a thing, we were just not interested in alternative. Like, we weren't interested in being compared to it or being kind of associated with it. It was just, we were just making music, and it seemed like packaging something that was a lot less exciting to us. So when the Eternals formed, we kind of stepped out. Well, I like to say we stepped out the side door, and we were just like trying to make the music that we were interested in doing, without thinking about what was happening in the larger musical landscape. So I worked at Idful Music Studio, which was on Damon Avenue, just like a block south of that intersection of Damon North and Milwaukee. And Stereolab was recording there, and Tortoise was recording there, and Veruca Salt recorded there. So there's so much, as you said, so much stuff was happening. and we were just kind of doing our thing, more kind of excited and influenced by like what was happening at Deadly Dragon than what was happening on the Billboard charts, you
Yeah.
know? So we were just trying to do our thing. And I feel like at that moment, there was a lot of conversations about dub and all types of stuff, but these are things that we have been playing around with for a long time. And I don't know that we ever really got, you know, much, you know, attention for it, you know, but that wasn't really the goal.
Because it was definitely a period of time there where, you know, could see you guys playing at the Rainbow or playing, you know, almost anywhere in the neighborhood. And I think for me as a casual observer to see you walking around and going, oh man, that's Damon Locks from the Eternals. Oh, that's Wesley Willis, right? That did something to me. It really kind of informed me how important this moment was. And that was in the midst of Wicker Park starting to gentrify and things
Yeah.
changing in that respect. So I think when we look back into the 90s and the music scene in Chicago, if you don't, I don't see how you can have a conversation without talking about Wicker Park and just how valuable it was to not just be in that moment, but to be a participant on the art part of what was happening. So much great stuff still cultivating because of that. And to go forward, the work you do at Stateville, and the work you do, your teaching accomplishments are pretty well known. You said something one time about being a teaching artist and the redundancy of the statement or the title teaching artist. I want to ask, is your activism your art, or is your art your activism?
That's a good question. When people, you know, frame me as an activist, I mean, they can, you know, people can call me whatever they want, but I don't really think of myself as an activist per se. I think of myself as an artist, and the work that I do, you know, at Stateville or in the classrooms of Sarah E. Good STEM Academy or wherever, or the Art Institute. These are things that I think artists should be doing in my book. So I've always put that in the category of being an artist. You know, like when I think of activists, I think about organizers, you know, people that are there with the bullhorn. And I'll be there with the bullhorn every once in a while, but I think I have a stronger voice in the studio making some art.
That's the balance though, right? Because if you're in a classroom or in a classroom setting, the teaching part has that same weight as your records do, because people who can't be or who don't have the fortune of sitting in a classroom with you, they are learning from you through your recorded work, right? Because that is that is the document of you, and that's your statement. And I know that I taught at the juvenile detention center, and that was one of the hardest experiences of my life, just on every level, because it was empowering in a way, because as a writer, I was able to teach these kids, but as a human being, it demoralized, it ruined me a little bit, because I saw they weren't going anywhere. They were where they were going to be. And I can only imagine being at a facility like Stateville in the middle of all this Black death at the hands of police and others. That had to have been a bit traumatizing.
It was. I mean, I really feel like the experience of being at Stateville, though, as you said, like it can be one of the most inspiring things that you ever going to interact with. You know, the work being made there, or the conversations that you have, but also it's one of the worst things that you can ever imagine. So I really feel that my heart was broken in a way that may never heal,
Mm.
For the first 2 years or longer, I really didn't keep track, but I would just break into tears at a TV commercial, because I was just like on that edge of being like sad all the time,
Yeah.
So it's not, I mean, it's very gratifying work, but it's not easy work, and anyone that does it understands. But I also think, truth be told, I think that all of us should engage in our justice system. Everyone should go and see our prison system and our jail system, because if it's going to be our system, we should know what it's like, and it's purposely obscured so the system can be whatever it wants.
Mm-hmm.
You're purposely not supposed to think about the people that are behind bars. But I think that's important to see it. And I think everyone should do it.
We're with Damon Locks. This is the Lumpen Radio Special, and you're listening to WLPNLP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio. Teaching while being an artist is also a balancing act, because you have to protect your art and yourself, but you have this mandate from whatever organization you're working with to do this teaching work. Have you ever worked for an organization that just did not get it, and you were like, despite them, I'm going to push through and do this because I know that this is more important than the bureaucracy part of that org?
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, no.
God bless
you. I think that maybe I kind of fell into it, or I was kind of asked each time to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And so my personality preceded me.
Mm-hmm.
And so people could be like, well, Damon's not going to do this. He might be perfect for this,
Right. Right.
So I never really had to push back on that scenario. People, thankfully, when I've been asked to teach, people have been like excited for me to bring my whole self to the job. So yeah. I've had pretty good experiences.
How long do you plan on teaching?
I hope to always teach, but I hope that I can transform that teaching in different ways. Stateville is now closed, and PNAP is pivoting to other spots.
Mm-hmm.
I hope, my goal is to continue to work inside incarceration spaces. I don't know if I will be doing it as regularly as I was for the last 11 years. I hope to be in classrooms often, but I'm trying to create something for myself where, as an individual artist, I can be in spaces, whether they're classrooms, whether they're community centers, whether they're, Firebird community. Sorry, I'm blanking on the whole name. They blow. They're a glass blowing organization.
Yes, I can't remember the name either. I know who you're talking about.
Firebird Community Arts.
Yes,
I think.
Yes.
And I'm great friends with them, so hopefully none of them are listening. But I hope that I'm trying to forge a life where, as an artist, if I get any kind of cultural cachet, then I can make some inroads into going into schools as an artist, as a person, and not as an institution, and do some workshops or do some conversations and play some music. Because for me, some of the goal is to like remain esoteric and odd, and allow people to see that that's a possibility. And you don't have to know about necessarily Constellation or Elastic or any of these other spaces. You don't have to necessarily know about Corbett versus Dempsey Gallery or Goldfinch Gallery, and it can come to you, and you can know that it exists.
I've been wanting to ask you this for a long time. I finally have a chance. The artwork that you did for International Anthem, for Makaya's album, for Universal Beings, Talk to me about what were you thinking when you created that mural that's on that album?
Oh, well, it was interesting because I think Scotty from International Anthem like came up with the idea of having me do it. And it was great. I had a studio at the Hyde Park Art Center, and Scotty and Makai came by the studio, and we had a long conversation.
Wait a minute.
We
Was
talked
that
to,
when we bumped into each other at the Hyde Park Art Center? You were working on the mural then?
I mean, I was at Hyde Park Art Center for 14 months.
Oh, okay.
So you can, yeah. I talked to Makai about like his ideas for Universal Beings, which is the name of the record. And I hit him back with some sketches. Like it just kind of when given the title, I think there was a possibility for two titles at the time. And I can't remember the other title was one of the other songs. And then he was like, I was thinking about Universal Beings. I was like, let's do Universal Beings. And I did. I think the original drawing that became the front cover. And then he gave me some thoughts about like a large crowd for like an even larger crowd on the inside. And so, but yeah, I just did my thing on that one. I really love that record cover. I think it's really beautiful.
It's one of my favorites too. And I think that's what got me really, and I was a fan of Makaya's already, but I knew it was your work when I saw it, right? I didn't have to be told because I've seen you do your thing. And I was like, that looks like a Damon piece. And it drew me in so wonderfully to the concept of the album. That artwork is as important as the music on it. So I just wanted to say that to you. It's one of my favorites. One of my favorites by far. But then you go and you do the artwork for Black Monument Ensemble too. And it's like, yo, this is as profound as the music. How do you draw, or what do you draw from when you are the visual artist, Damon Locks, in relation to something like Black Monument Ensemble?
Well, for the first record, I had worked so hard. It took me several years to kind of get Black Monument to that point. And that first album was a recording of our first full concert. We had played a couple times before that, but it was the first time that I was able to have Move Me Soul dancers, the full band, the full vocalists, costumes by Jamie Hayes, and Red Bull was sponsoring it, and it had they had built a stage to my specifications and the lighting and everything. So it was just amazing. And I think I was turning 50. Was I? I think I was turning 50. Was I turning?
Was this the Cultural Center?
It was at the Garfield Park Conservatory.
Okay.
And so I was just like sweating, breaking out, being nervous. Right. You know, while we were playing the songs, there would be songs that I realized, oh, we never figured out what the ending of this was. You know, I was like, whatever this ending is how the ending is going to be. You know, luckily there was incredible musicians and vocalists involved. Anna Martine Whitehead was doing a solo in it as a dancer, and Angel was our first time performing with Angel, and everyone just did an amazing job. And then it was over, and it was my birthday. I had a birthday party a couple days later. And then about 2 weeks after that, the engineer who did the sound for the show sent me a board tape of the show, which I was so busy, I hadn't even thought about recording it. And when I got the board tape, I was like, this is good. And then that became the album. So, wow. But when it came time to doing the album cover, I had spent so much energy in like conceptualizing all these aspects of it. I was like, well, what do I do to put the record cover together? And so I went back to all the artwork I was making over the course of building Black Monument Ensemble and made a collage out of all the artwork. Because I was like, if I'm working on Black Monument Ensemble while making this artwork, there's no better way to represent Black Monument Ensemble than than buy the art I was making at the same time. So I just made a new collage of the work that was being made while putting it together.
You also work with one of my favorite musicians, Rob Mazurek, or you worked with him with New Future City Radio. That was a fascinating special on Lumpen. That was mind blowing. The takeover,
the live show. Yeah.
The takeover, my friend, was I wanted to be in on that so bad. Selfishly, I'm telling you, I wanted to be in on that so bad. What was it like? I've watched Rob do his thing with Isotope 217 and other bands for a long time. What was it like working with that cat?
Well, Rob has been a huge influence on me. Probably, I mean, you know, with Isotope and the Eternals, we would play together. We went on tour together back in the day. And around 2010, I think, maybe, yeah, that's about right. Rob asked me to do a recitation for a Exploding Star Orchestra record. And so I went to the studio with them, did the recitation that he wrote live with maybe a 20-piece band. It was huge.
Wow.
And after that was done, Rob was like, "You're in the Exploding Star Orchestra now. I hope you don't mind. We're playing the Jazz Fest tomorrow. Can you do it?" And so I've been in I think I was on that record, and then maybe I wasn't on the next record, but then I've been on every record since, and I've toured the world with Exploding Star Orchestra. And so Rob was a person that I saw as an example of a big band leader.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time Black Monument came around, I had an example of someone, how I could put a group together and give everyone the space to be themselves. And then the Eternals had done a record called Espiritu Zombie, where we expanded to a 10-piece. And so I was ready when Black Monument came about. And the New Future City Radio is a great collaboration. I was asked to play this event at Oxbow, and I was supposed to do it with Ken Vandermark, and Ken Vandermark couldn't do it. And so they asked me if there's anyone that I wanted to play with, and I said Rob. And so we came up with, he's in Marfa, Texas now. So we were texting back and forth, and I said, well, what are some ideas? Here's some words I've been thinking about, New Future City Radio. And he was like, I was like, whatever you prepare with your sampler and your horn, think about the idea of New Future City Radio. And he was like, well, if I'm coming, let's book some studio time. So we played the show for the first time under that name. We came back and we spent 3 days in the studio, and then we were done and we made an album.
We're going to listen to Yes from New Future City Radio, take a break, and come back with our second half of the Lumpen Radio special with Damon Locks. And before we do that, everybody, next week, Thursday night, here at CoPro, Damon Locks will be having a listening party for his new work, List of Demands. And
it's a concert. It's a simulcast concert.
You know, Mario needs to get his stuff together, Damon. That's
okay.
That's what's happening. It's a simulcast concert. Cool beans. I will be here, absolutely, to check all that out. I cannot wait. What time does it begin?
Now you got me. I'm gonna say 7:30 or 8 o'clock until I look it up.
Okay, you know what? That's about right. That makes sense. Yeah. And folks that come and hang out, get a chance to meet Damon and the band. I will ask you in a little while who you got playing with you, but I have a general idea. If you have folks with you, who they may be. I'm thinking Ben Lamar Gay will be here, hopefully, because that's my man. That would be cool.
He's out of town, I think.
Of course he is.
As always.
Always. Yes, I do know. Let's take a listen to Damon Locks and Rob Mazurek and New Future City Radio. This is called Yes, and we'll be back in just a little bit. This is WLPNOP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio.
Go back, come up, go back, come up.
One time. All right. 2 times.
Yeah.
Can you do it, Nina?
Yep. Yup.
Breathe it.
Go back, come up, go back, come up.
One time. All right.
is colossal. The plan is in effect. If you really break it down, the loss is immeasurable. For every move you make, they got 3 moves that negate anything you might have even thought of doing. See, I need 5,000 rays from the sun and 2 big magnifying glasses to defeat your darkness.
WLPNOP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio. It's the Lumpen Radio special with our very special guest, Damon Locks. That's new music from the album List of Demands. It's called The Signal is Hot. Why, Damon? Man, thank you again for joining us, Damon, for sure. Why List of Demands and why now?
I've been working on this music for maybe about 2 years. It was music that was focused on text, on my writing. I have always been proud of my lyrics, and going all the way back to Trenchmouth, I'm very proud of my lyrics. But in Exploding Star Orchestra, I do text work, and then occasionally in Black Monument, you'll hear some spoken text. But I never did a project that I focused on it. And so it seemed like time to do one of those projects. And it took me about kind of 2 years of going in and out of the studio and bringing some guests in and out of the studio. And I think as I was doing that, I was also in summer of 2023, I was teaching a class at Stateville where we were working on creating a document on what work on the inside should be like and what it should do. So we created a thing called the Artist's Constitution. And they, in the Constitution, they stated their kind of aspirations, their demands, and their principles. And my goal was to have that printed and disseminated out to people as a conversation piece, as a statement, a statement of intent, And a lot of the guys who were in that class I had worked with. Some of them I worked with for 10 years, and some of them were brand new. Some of them were in between. But it was fun to kind of tease out what they wanted to see out of work from the inside. And so while coming up with the idea or working on finishing the record, I had a song called List of Demands. And my partner Tara and I were talking about the potential titles. And she said, the title List of Demands implies text. And so since this is text-based, List of Demands implies that there are words, that this is a selection of words, and that the songs themselves could be a list of demands. And I dug that, but then that also made it click that I should include that Artist's Constitution inside of it with their list of demands. So everything kind of came together in that art process. If you're working with intention, then near the end, everything kind of comes together and starts to make sense.
How much of this is your commentary? I suppose all of it is. That might not be the appropriate way to ask this question, but I will. How much of this is your list of demands based on the times that we are currently living in?
I mean, I write in the times that we're living in, so that's what comes out. I think that even from my earliest days of listening to music that wasn't on the radio, I was really excited when the lyrics were of the moment, or had. I was always fascinated with music that kind of addressed the times that we're in. Early on, as a kid, songs like "Fight the Power" by Isley Brothers and things like that was exciting to me, But as I grew up, there was punk music that would do that. There was Public Enemy that would do that, And this idea of being able to like make music that kind of engaged with the world around you and connected with the world around you had always been the goal. So I think that even if I approach it from a abstract, artistic, weird framework, I'm also thinking about that in the back of my mind.
How did we get here? I mean, we're talking about the earnestness of the artist to be able to reflect the times that they are living in. There has to be an A and a B point, and I get it. I know where it starts. It all kind of starts and begins with the tenets of white supremacy, right? But when we're talking about translation to people through music and through text, how did we get here to where it's an anomaly to speak out against it if you're a musician, as opposed to it being a thing that was a regular thing for a very nice period of time in our younger years, right? When you had Isley Brothers, the OJs, P.E., or Curtis, or any of those,
or Nina Simone, or Max Roach, or
absolutely. How did we get here to where now this music that speaks message music has become an anomaly?
I think capitalism has a job to do, and the job is to steer everyone towards spending their money. And if we can fill the airwaves with ideas that aren't particularly engaging or confrontational to the system, then the system benefits from that, So I think all there are just tons of things. We're kind of we mostly are trained to look at ourselves and present ourselves to the world, and not look at ourselves as we relate to a community. And so that the relating to ourselves as a community has been a survival tactic for decades, and hundreds of years. But capitalism has got us kind of looking at ourselves as individuals, and how can we big up ourselves and present ourselves to the world as an individual? What is our brand? And branding is not really about a community or looking out for everyone.
We're with Damon Locks. This is the Lumpen Radio special on WLPNLP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio. On list of demands, by the way, I have a very sharp plum-colored vinyl. Oh, nice. Oh, it's lovely. Yeah. I just leave it on the record player. I'm like, look at this. It's beautiful. And the work, the artwork, and all that stuff. It's an amazing project. I encourage people to really dig into it, man, and listen to it. You've got my friend Krista Franklin on there as an additional voice for your text. And High Priestess is it's so good. That is such a good piece. How did you get where did the inspiration come to have Krista collaborate, particularly for something like High Priestess?
Well, Krista and I think since we met, we got along, and we would text and exchange, pleasantries and meet up or hang out. And I think we're always looking for opportunities to collaborate. And she did a project. She did an exhibition over at DePaul, and she had me create a mixtape of text that she had people record. And so I created the sound and created the arc of the mixtape, edited it all together so that you could listen to it inside of her exhibition with headphones. And I was super happy to be able to collaborate with her on that and make something that was part of her exhibition. And when focusing on text, making a record that focused on text, I was like, well, I gotta call Krista. I gotta have Krista involved in this project. So because Krista is so brilliant, I was like, Krista, make a voice memo and send me anything you want. This is a project I'm doing. I explained the project, and she sent me High Priestess. And so I took that voice memo and went to the studio and built a whole piece around that. Created more space in it, and if it to me, it's just a perfect and wonderful spot on the record because it gets abstract, it gets open, it gets more. I feel like my pieces on it are very like city sounding, and hers gets to float, and you hear nature sounds, but then you also hear the conflict of people. So throughout the record, there's these kind of conflict sounds that show up, and it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't until I was done that I realized that there's like at least 3 or 4 songs on there where you hear crowds in protest.
It's a beautiful piece. It speaks to just how dope she is, and a lot of people see her as more a collage person and muralist and artist in that respect. But I've maintained for a long time that she's one of the better poets that walks around Chicago, and she could say the same about me. Doesn't have enough of her work out into the world as a poet and as a writer. List of Demands is heavy. It doesn't weigh on you as a listener, but it's a testimony in my mind. And I wonder, because the exploration of the writer, particularly when we start talking about poems or written work as text, juxtaposed to putting that text into spoken word form or into music or into a recorded album like List of Demands. When you are writing, are you thinking, I know you don't want to tax yourself and make this harder for you, but you also have to think, what complements this written work that I've done, and how can I work my musical mind into my writing mind? How do you put that together for something like List of Demands?
Well, I think that I approach the text as text. And then because I've been like making music, making words for music for so long, that it's not a big transition for me to perform the text with music. And I think that, like, if you look at in the liner notes, I really referenced Linton Kwesi Johnson, I think a couple times. And I feel like the reason why I dug deep into Linton Kwesi Johnson, like I've read a book about him, and I read a collection of his prose, just to like think about like where he was coming from as an artist, as a poet that put text to music. I think that it felt very natural, and that maybe that someone like Linton Kwesi Johnson was a kindred spirit in terms of like delivering text with sound. So it to me, it's just maybe, how do I find the vibe? You know, what was the vibe that this text would go with? And but since it's a job I've been doing for a long time, it actually comes quite natural.
Your album, this album, List of Demands, is categorized in some places as a hip hop record. You got a problem with that, or is that cool by you?
I'm cool with whatever people want to call any of my music, really, because, you know, I mentioned capitalism earlier. I feel like genres are, you know, basically trying to support capitalism anyway, you know? Like a lot of jazz musicians like Miles Davis didn't care about the term jazz, and the AACM talks about great black music. And I feel like, you know, most music is only there to form categories so you can sell it, or to keep people in or out of a category. So for me, it's never really been important what a genre is, because you're just really kind of trying to express yourself. And as you know, coming from a band like the Eternals, genre is a moot point anyway.
Yes, I do know that to be a fact.
I will say, Mario, that I am curious when people, you know, I'm always curious about where people are going to put the music, you know, because sometimes it's still like this might be in a jazz section. And I go, is this jazz? You know, or if it's in a hip hop section, I'm like, is it hip hop? But I will say that the, you know, earliest inspirations of sampling obviously came from hip hop for me, and sampling for me, you know, like the Bomb Squad was something that blew my mind when I first heard it. So that will always be an inspiration, and I think that what they were doing was indelible, you know, in my heart in terms of like how to approach like sound collage.
Yeah. I also think in listening to that and Black Monument Ensemble, there's the underlying theme, if you will, is the need to make this work, to make this better for us, to be able to not continue to be the negative part of narrative, but to really showing what you got, if you will. And that's it's. And I'm not a music reviewer, you know what I'm saying? I'm not my man Greg Cott, but it's patently obvious to me that if we are to follow what you are prescribing to us, that we have a lot of work that we need to do, self-work and the larger community work. Today, as we broadcast this, today is a national economic boycott. Maybe. And I have found,
with fingers crossed,
you know, I have found in my social media travels today that there are people who are upset that people would like to have a day where we don't spend money in this nonsense system and just for a day show the power of the people. And this kind of, I guess, goes back to the question about what happened. Why is this kind of music an anomaly now? As a man, what happened to us that we can't even like put together the nerve to not spend money in the most capitalistic system on a planet?
I mean, you know, I think that it owes. I think that comes from how good the systems of control are, in terms of holding power over us. You know, we are locked into the things that make us comfortable, and we are adverse to the things that make us uncomfortable. And life used to be uncomfortable, you know, and that uncomfortable quality created a lot of innovations and thoughts. And I'm not saying that we should be uncomfortable. I'm just saying that like we can't have everything, and we can't have everything anytime we want it. But the system has given us the feeling that we should be able to have anything anytime we want it, at any time. But we spent, you know, just in our lives, we spent decades not having everything that we want, you know? And I think that having everything you want is actually like kind of a detriment to inspiration, imagination, creativity, you know? For me, I just real quick, I put out this record called 3D Sonic Adventure. I released it myself. There's only 250 copies of it. I refused, or I said no to the offer of like international anthem distribution. It's not available through Bandcamp. You got to talk to somebody. You got to go to the record store. You got to go to 606 and say, hey, do you have this record? You got to go to Squeezebox or Reckless or what have you and say, do you have this record? And when you get the record, it's going to be beautiful. And there's a letter in it that says, thank you for buying this record. I hope you had a great conversation on your way to getting it. Because for me, this idea of having to search for something and having to spend some time waiting for something and then finally getting something is a really beautiful feeling. And I feel like we need to slow down. We need to wait. I'm not going to get on my soapbox because we're almost done, but answering machines, that was a wonderful process. Instead of expecting someone to text you back immediately, you would spend your whole day doing something else, come home listening to the answer machine, and those people that left messages had no expectation that you were going to get back to them anytime soon. So I feel like the quickness, the expectation of having the thing that you want immediately available to you creates a barrier to a boycott, because people still want their stuff at they can't wait till tomorrow. They need it right now. You know?
Hey man, I really appreciate you in a million different ways. You're one of the nicest cats I've had the pleasure of knowing, and you have always been solid and stand up to me with me. And doing this means a lot for a lot of people. So thank you for taking a moment out of your life to talk to us. Thank you for creating this great work. I'm looking forward to the next Black Monument Ensemble album. I'm looking to List of Demands Part 2 or whatever you got coming, brother. Thank you, Damon, so much, man. Looking forward to next week here at CoPro as well. Thank you a million times. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That's it's at 8 o'clock, 8 to 10. In tone, Ajabe of the Pan-African Space Station will be DJing ahead of my set.
Nice.
I'll have Major Taylor, a.k.a. Ralph Darden, as a guest, and Olula Negre will be playing cello as a guest. Ben and Macy and Krista are all out of town.
I'll see you next week, man. Thank you again, brother.
All right, peace.
Peace.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Damon Locks, everybody, on the Lumpen Radio special. Here's a cut from List of Demands. We'll listen to a couple and then we will step away. Thank you again for listening. Really appreciate it. This is WLPNOP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpen Radio.
Isn't it beautiful? All right. Isn't it beautiful? All right.